This chapter is on the endocrine system, which is one of the major controlling systems in addition to the nervous system. The endocrine system includes glands, which are specifically ductless. That means that they secrete the hormones directly into the bloodstream. The organs themselves have a very extensive distribution of blood vessels. So those chemical hormones are going to go into the surrounding fluid around the cells, which is the extracellular fluid, also called the bloodstream. This is necessary to maintain homeostasis, and it is an important controlling system, just like the nervous system. One of the big differences is that the endocrine system doesn't work as quickly as the nervous system. Both of them are going to affect specific effector, which are target cells, using chemical messengers. And those chemical messengers are going to be called hormones. So this is comparing and contrasting the endocrine system with the neuron. So notice that letter A shows an endocrine gland. That endocrine gland, like the pancreas, for example, is going to manufacture hormones like insulin and glucagon, then releasing them into the blood, which surrounds the cells. That hormone then will travel with the help of the cardiovascular system to the effectors. The effectors are where there's going to be a receptor that chemical hormone binds to. And it will take a little longer than the nervous system. It could take as much as seconds or minutes, days, or even in the case of the reproductive system, it could take months. Whereas the nervous system is going to occur in the stretch of milliseconds, and it's going to use a different chemical called a neurotransmitter. There's going to be a neuron that sends a nerve impulse to the end of the neuron. A neurotransmitter is released instead of a hormone, and that binds to an effector cell, thus producing a much quicker response that we see in this general area right here. This slide is comparing the nervous and endocrine system. So the communication method for the nervous system is that there is a nerve impulse, causes a neurotransmitter to be released, whereas the endocrine system secretes hormones into the blood, and these hormones are transported within the blood to the effectors. The effector for the nervous system could be other neurons, muscle cells, or glands with a receptor. But in the endocrine system, it could be any target cell in the body with a receptor for that hormone. For example, a thyroid gland produces the thyroid hormone, and that binds to many, many different tissues all throughout the body. The response time is super, super quick for the nervous system, could be milliseconds or seconds, whereas the endocrine system is a little bit slower, could be seconds to minutes to hours or even months in the case of the reproductive system. The range of the effect is usually more localized for the nervous system and more widespread for the endocrine system. The duration of time is usually short term for the nervous system, but much more long lasting for the endocrine system. There's a lot of different organs in the endocrine system, and we're going to first look at those glands on the left side of this figure here. We can see the pituitary gland shown, which is at the base of the brain, and it releases hormones that then are going to tell other organs to make another hormone. Those hormones are adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is ACTH, follicle stimulating hormone, which is FSH, growth hormone, which is GH, luteinizing hormone, which is LH, melanocyte stimulating hormone, which is MSH, prolactin, which is PRL, and thyroid stimulating hormone, which is TSH. And there's different memory tricks to remember this list of hormones from the pituitary gland. And notice specifically that it's from the anterior pituitary gland, which is different because there's a blood connection between it and the hypothalamus. The posterior pituitary gland, its job is to store these two hormones. So, as I said online, you can find different mnemonics, which are memory tricks to remember these. The one I use, which may not be the best, is the letter N followed by the words goat flap. And in this example, I'm going to change the colors of the O and the A because they're posterior pituitary hormones. So let's look at this mnemonic and what it means. The M is for melanocyte stimulating hormone, which would be this one. So that stimulates the melanocytes to start making the pigment melanin. The G is for growth hormone, which is going to stimulate growth in places like the cartilage, bones, muscles. The T is for thyroid stimulating hormone. You can see that I'm purposely skipping the O and the A at this point, but we'll come back to those. The F is for FSH, which is follicle stimulating hormone. I like this mnemonic as well because both reproductive hormones, or we call them gonadotropic hormones, because they stimulate the gonads, the ovaries, as well as the testes to make hormones. I like it because those two are next to each other. Then we have ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone. It's going to tell the adrenal gland to start making hormones. I didn't check off LH. And then finally, the last one is prolactin, which is going to stimulate the mammary gland. For the posterior pituitary gland, there is a nerve connection between the posterior pituitary and the hypothalamus, which you'll see is directly above the pituitary gland. And as you can see, it's going to secrete ADH and oxytocin. So the rest of this mnemonic is for oxytocin, which I guess is abbreviated OT. And finally, antidiuretic hormone, which affects the kidney and causes more water to go back into the blood instead of out the urine. We then have the pineal gland, which secretes melatonin. Melatonin, which is what causes us to go to sleep at night. It sort of controls our circadian cycle. The thyroid gland, which releases two hormones called calcitonin and thyroid hormone. This is the thyroid gland, but is showing the posterior side of the thyroid gland, which is where the parathyroid glands are located at. So they secrete a hormone called parathyroid hormone, PTH. Moving down to the bottom of the body, we see the adrenal glands, and there's two parts to the adrenal gland. The outer part is going to secrete hormones like corticosteroids, and the inner part is called the medulla, which secretes epinephrine and norepinephrine. On the other side of the body here, we can see different organs and the hormones that they make. So these organs are oftentimes going to respond to a signal from the pituitary, but some of them aren't. Some are going to directly respond to something that happens in the blood directly. So the thymus is going to control T cells. It releases thymopoietin and thymosins. The heart is going to release a hormone called atriopeptin. The kidneys secrete calcitriol as well as erythropoietin. The GI tract is going to secrete hormones that affect digestion, and the pancreas is going to secrete glucagon and insulin. The other two, you don't need to worry about them, so I'm not going to highlight them. And then further down, finally, we have the testes secreting androgen and the ovaries secreting estrogen and progesterone. Again, I'm purposely not highlighting inhibin because I'm not going to ask you about it. So those are the main hormones in the endocrine system.